Hi. When my kids were young, one day the three oldest, Seth, Aaron, and Rebecca, were playing outside when the ice cream truck stopped in front of our house. The neighborhood kids gathered to get some ice cream. My boys were probably 7 and 5, and Becky was probably 2.5 years old. My youngest, Rachel, was a newborn. My three oldest kids stood there as some of the other kids bought ice cream. We weren't getting any that day, and I thought my kids knew that since I hadn't given Seth any money. But Becky didn't know. So when the truck drove away and Seth didn't have ice cream for her, my sweet little Becky turned toward the house with big tears rolling down her cheeks. I was standing at the window and saw her and heard her little cries, and it broke my heart. I can remember this scene today, about 36 years later, and my heart still breaks. This was but a moment in my daughter's life, one small disappointment at a very young age. She was probably over it in moments and doesn't even remember it. But this event, when I thought about it recently, made me think about Christians and how sad their plight is. They're standing in the yard with the rest of us as we purchase our ice cream. They don't have any, but they're sure they'll magically get some before the truck leaves. They wait and wait, and while they wait, they live as prisoners, trapped in the yard and unable to look away from the ice cream truck to live their lives. They can imagine the taste of the ice cream and how much they're going to enjoy it, but they never get to taste it. The ice cream for them, of course, is various things in this life, and then in the next a mansion where they expect to live eternally and I suppose have all the ice cream they want. Either they expect plenty of yummy food, or they think they won't need to eat or won't want food. Whatever the situation is that they expect, they know they won't be hungry. That's what they believe they've been promised. They might stand in the yard getting blistered by the sun for the rest of their life. But someday soon, the sun is not going to light on them ever again. And they'll never again be hot and need a nice cold ice cream to cool them down in the middle of July. Someday they'll leave the thorns and thistles of the yard and be cool in their own mansion in the sky with a whole freezer full of ice cream. And they're willing to give up everything for this cool mansion. They bet everything on something they hope is coming later, something they believe will be far better than the life they live now. It's only a chance, but they think it's worth gambling everything for it. It's a pearl of great price, so they sell everything to buy it. They pay with their lives in hopes of getting the prize. Now they know that not everybody who runs wins the prize. In fact, they know that only a few will win it because many will seek the mansion, but few will find it. But they're willing to give up everything on a slim chance. What do they give up? Well, again, everything. They can't live by they can't live by their own will, but only by the will of those who wrote a bunch of documents that got put into a book called the Holy Bible. They don't follow their passions. If their passion is to dance, for instance, they ignore it. Dancing is not glorifying to their God. At least that's how many of them feel. They look down on the entire entertainment business, viewing it as promoting a life of sin. If they want to be a singer, they're handicapped because they must glorify their God in everything they do. Some even think that the only songs they have a right to sing are psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs. When I was a child, my father said anything else was a jig song, and we shouldn't sing it. As a writer, I used to think that everything I wrote had to glorify Yahweh, so it stifled my self-expression. I can remember being frustrated, not because I couldn't write salacious material, I didn't want to do that, but I had to throw God into everything and make my material religious in some way. Even some jobs are not available to Christians. Some can't work in places that sell alcohol. Some can't work in theaters that show R-rated movies. Some can't be police officers. Some can't be in politics. Surely they can't be tattoo artists. When I was in college, one summer I worked in one of the administrative offices at the school. One day one of the regular employees in the office asked me to type a letter. The letter started out with, "Dear Reverend so-and-so." The Bible says that holy and reverend is Yahweh's name. So I was taught that no human could claim that title. I told the man I couldn't do it. See, I was super religious. I know some say, if you left Christianity, you never were a Christian. Well, that simply is not so. I mean, even the Bible says people can fall away. The man, bless his heart, said, "That's okay, he's just a minister of music." Now, since I was a student, I got away with that, but that's another job that Christians have to think about. That is, working for religious organizations that teach doctrines that the Christians don't agree with. Because the Bible says women aren't to teach men or have authority over them, I quit a good job because that was going to be required of me. I know some Christians would say I was simply confused about what the Bible says about this. Maybe. But these same Christians would say that we should live our lives on a daily basis in the way that glorifies their God. How can a woman move back and forth between being someone who is totally subservient to men to taking authority over men? Honestly, don't know how that could even work. Spirituality is supposed to be an everyday thing, not just on Sunday. The point, I thought, was that women are not to put themselves in places of authority over men. Women need to know their place. What if a Christian woman on the job were asked to supervise her own pastor? Anyway, I know for a fact that I wasn't the only Christian who thought I was doing the right thing to quit the job. Worse than all this, in my opinion, is that many Christians must turn their backs on family members and friends who don't go along with their way of thinking. For instance, if some in their group fall away, they aren't supposed to eat a meal with those people. Christians are to shun them and have no company with them in order to cause them to miss the fellowship in return. Now, I'm not saying most Christians are actually Christian enough to do this. My niece, for instance, did it to me but not to her brother. That's usually how it goes, I think. They shun the ones it's easy to shun because they hardly ever see them anyway, and then embrace the ones near and dear to them. Maybe that helps them feel like they've done what they've been told to do without really doing much of anything at all. But some do cast aside brothers and sisters and even their own children. They might throw their children out for being gay or trans or atheistic. Some might even do it if their children dress in ways the parents don't approve of or refuse to go to church. Christians are commanded to love their God above all others. If not, they're not worthy of Jesus and his shed blood. So in the yard, they stand when others have eaten their ice cream and gone about enjoying the rest of their day and then gone home to their good warm bed. In the rain and sleet and snow, Christians stand waiting and waiting and waiting. All alone they wait, if that's how it has to be. For 2,000 years, they've stood, waiting for something that never comes. They're like Delta Dawn, which I've said before, standing there with their suitcase in their hand, waiting for a mysterious dark-haired man to come and take them to his mansion in the sky. And it's not just the afterlife they wait for. They also are stymied in this life regarding decisions they need to make. They believe they aren't capable of making good decisions, of directing their own steps, because the book they rely on tells them so. So they pray and wait and pray and wait and pray and wait. One time I spent 6 months praying for direction, but nothing ever came, so I had to decide for myself, which of course is what we all do. Well, actually, some Christians toss a coin and expect their God to make the coin fall in the way he wants it. Christians are told not even to worry about what they'll eat or drink or what they'll wear. They're told that their God will take care of all that as long as they seek him first. They're not even to take a thought about about these important concerns. I reckon ice cream is just supposed to jump off the truck and land in their hands. But of course, that's not forthcoming either. One would think that the failure of promises that are supposed to come in this life, food, clothing, and answers to prayers, would cause Christians to wonder about whether afterlife promises might actually be real. But it doesn't seem to dissuade them from worshiping the God who never seems to fulfill his promises. The Christian hope has to be the saddest thing in the whole world. Oh, Christians don't think so. They say that even if they're wrong, it'll be okay because they think they're free. They don't understand that they're in a prison of their own making. They think that they're living their best life. And even if nothing comes of it, it's still the best life they could live. Well, their beloved Apostle Paul denies their words. He says they're wrong. He says that they never received their eternal ice cream. They are of all men most miserable. The World English Bible says they are of all men most pitiable. And they are. And it hurts me deeply because many of my loved ones are caught up in this religious cult. They think they're the smart ones, the wise ones, the blessed ones, the good ones, the moral ones, the holy people. They believe their ice cream is coming, both in this life and the next. So they look up constantly and wait. It breaks my heart, and I wish I could wave a magic wand and all the confusion and craziness would evaporate. But I can't. So I write these articles and make these videos and hope that, they might at least still do a little bit of good for somebody who might be questioning or might need a little encouragement to leave the yard and find some money and go buy their own ice cream. My daughter eventually got some ice cream. She may have eaten it that day, as we might have had some in the refrigerator. But Christians will never get theirs because ain't no ice cream falling from the sky. And ain't no God-man coming to take him where his ice cream is. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. Thank you all. Bye.